Welcome to Whiteboard Wednesday, where there is no actual whiteboard, and I'm both the interviewer and the interviewee. We're covering reversing a string using a different method from the previous video, where we used the cheesy dot reverse array method. If your interviewer perhaps says, okay, that's funny that you know dot reverse, that makes it really easy. Show me you can do it with maybe like a for loop, or show me another way to handle the same problem. So be prepared for stuff like that to happen. You need to be able to handle one problem in multiple ways, or at least be aware of doing it in multiple ways. Let's jump right in. More than likely, I'm going to need to attack this by setting up a for loop, looping through the original input string, so it should be A, B, C, D in this demo here, looping through that and concatenating a new string in the reverse order. That sounds like a crazy method of attack, but it actually makes sense when you dive on in. I'm going to give myself some space to code, and we're going to hit it like so. I need to set up some kind of string for my reversal, so we can call it reversed output or reversed answer or something like that, right? Reversed answer. We'll call it reverse string. That makes sense. Our output, our desired output. It's going to start as a blank string. Before I forget, like I have in the past, we're going to make sure to do our return keyword. Very easy to forget this small little keyword, especially if that's what you're required to do in your technical question, or if you're on HackerRank or LeetCode or some like algorithm testing or website. Don't forget that return keyword. I'm going to go ahead and return my reversed string value. And from there, I'm going to, in between these two, run that for loop of let I equal 0. And a string actually has a dot length method on it, so we can say as long as I is less than the length of said string, we're going to increment I by 1 every iteration and run our normal for loop. What we can do here is we're going to say that the reverse string is what we're going to be adding to, right? And we're going to be adding to itself and assigning itself a new value. Rather than doing something like plus equals, we need to do that in reverse order. We need to say, I want to add the character, which is represented by our input string str and bracket I. So the string can actually use this kind of bracket notation syntax that you'd be used to seeing on arrays, where you have an array index position. Strings also have an index position starting at 0 and going up to length minus 1. So stri would represent the first character, aka A. And I would want to say that this is being added onto the end of the string. So rather than saying reverse string plus string I want to reverse that. I want to have the right-hand side evaluate to A plus blank at the first run and store that into reverse string. The next loop would be the character B, and it'd be B plus A. So that's slightly reversed. And the next run of the solution would be C. So that'd be C plus BA, and then you can see how it's reversing. So saving this file and letting it run, let's check out our output. DCBA as expected inside of our browser. We got the expected output for our expected input. Testing now my hello world. Let's see if this actually works with exclamation points and other characters like that. It sure does. Switching over to Covalence and Star Wars, we should be able to see that this thing reverses strings as effectively as our dot reverse method we had last week. Awesome, so that's another solution to reversing a string, not taking advantage of the array method. Let's say you didn't know dot reverse. This is another way to do so. If you guys have not seen this before, we can actually accomplish this with less verbose syntax. If you're at an actual whiteboard without this nice IDE with color, with bracket colorization and automatic filling in of closing brackets and stuff like that, if you're in an interview setting, you're probably nervous holding an expo and a whiteboard in a sterile room being interviewed by somebody. If that's the case, writing out all this, while it may be safe and definitely works, it can present room for error, and we want to remove room for error. So if you haven't seen this before, we can do something called the for of loop syntax. I'm going to say let character or char or even I, this is our iterating variable, let character of str. What does this accomplish? I can now replace str bracket I with character. Oop, if I can learn to type, with character. And it should hopefully produce, if I save the file, the same output. It still has Skywalker. It still has Covalence reversed correctly. So if I replace it with my input down here, sorry if you can't see that, with Covalence and run the code, we get Covalence reversed in the browser there. Awesome. Well, how does that work? it essentially sets up the exact same syntax I have before. It still sets up an iterating counter like I starting at 0 that goes up to string.length and increments by 1 each iteration. We just replace that str bracket I syntax with this variable. That's what that variable is instead representing. So it's representing each element in the array or the string or what have you. And that's a lot simpler to write and easier to remember if you're sitting at a whiteboard with less room for error. So with that, that concludes today's Whiteboard Wednesday. I might show you an advanced array method next week going over this, or we might go ahead and move on to a different interview question and come back to reverse string with an advanced array method later on. See y'all then.